in elementary school, while in elementary school, I remember being picked on a lot. Being picked on for having different interests, being a kid that was happy, being a kid that had all these talents such as drawing, painting, building, creating, especially with connects, constructs, Legos, you name it, right? I was a kid that was tapped into my true abilities. But of course, in the form and in an aspect of a child. And it was a beautiful space that I was in. But because I grew up in a neighborhood, as maybe some of y'all may not know, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. And Brooklyn, New York during the early, well, pretty much the whole 90s and just in general, there was a lot of kids that experienced things that they didn't deserve either. They were traumatized and living in a dysfunctional home with parents that would abuse hard narcotics and other drugs and everything else, right? Alcoholics or a parent or parents that just physically and or verbally abused each other. I grew up in an area where a lot of kids experience a lot of negative, nasty things. So when they're exposed to that, that's all they know. And because they're hurt by what they see and they can't reverse it, they can't unsee it, they can't unfeel it. Naturally, they pass it along to someone else, especially someone else that's shine bright. So I was a kid that was picked on because even though I went through my own trauma of being molested at the age of 4, I was resilient enough and still tapped into my happy space, even though that happened. And again, when you're 4 years old, you're not going to know what exactly is going on. You don't know what that means and what that looks like. You're just not going to know. And anybody that want to convince you otherwise because they can't accept the fact that perhaps the person you're talking about is a parent of theirs, then that's something that they're going to have to fucking deal with. It doesn't change the circumstance of the scenario, but I digress. I remember feeling unprotected by both my parents. My mom would try, she would do her best, she would go into school and she'll mention to the teachers, to the principal, assistant principal, whomever, about me being picked on and, you know, them being careless and not giving a fuck about their job or their life either, because either they experienced the same thing and they got them so disconnected from their heart space they don't give a fuck about another child's well-being and their safety. Which make you question why the fuck would you even think about being part of the, teaching or being involved in children's lives if you feel slighted like that towards your own child, your own childhood and other kids that fucked with you in your day. But my mother would reach out to them and they'll do the least and nothing changes. I even had some teachers that didn't give a fuck about other kids talking crazy to me or physically attacking me. They just didn't care. I had teachers literally say they didn't care to my face. Then my father, being that he's from the West Indies and Trinidad, and his thing was, hey, you need to learn how to defend yourself. So he would take me to his Aikido classes that he would take every Saturday. Sometimes he'll go multiple times a week, but because of his schedule, with his profession, he didn't have time during the week. He would go on the weekends, and the only time that particular center was open on the weekend was Saturday, because I believe they open, at least 5 to 6 days out of the week. I remember just not really enjoying it. I didn't like the energy of it. I didn't like the flow. I didn't like the physical movements. I was more so into Taekwondo, and it was another type of martial arts that I was really, really intrigued in. And You know how it is, what part of your parents are from, either in the West Indies or if they're foreign or just in general. They're just not, if it's something that is not, they're not aligned to and they're not participating in, they don't want you to participate in it either. They want you to do as they do because their way is the best way. You know how it goes, right? So I remember just feeling unprotected. I felt sometimes not like I didn't feel like going to school at all. I felt like just staying in the house because that was the safest place, especially during certain days. Especially when you're a kid, you're not going to realize that, hey, you have your good days and your bad days. I had my good days and my bad days as a kid, and during my bad days, I just didn't want to be bothered. I wanted to just recluse. And my mother was like, no, it's nothing I can do. Like, you're going to have to go to school. You're going to have to go to school. And as a kid, I felt like she didn't give a fuck about my safety, how I felt. I felt like she didn't care. She didn't want to get in trouble, have legal issues of it. And I get it. But if your child is saying and they're that uncomfortable to the point where they don't even want to step foot there, that's a problem. And I felt like as a kid and even to a degree as an adult, I feel there was moments that she just wanted that experience to toughen me up, if you will. Yeah, no, she didn't want her child to, get hurt, but at the same time in her head, and she explained to me as an adult, like, there's going to be people out there that are always going to say and do certain things to you. You're going to have to get used to being around that type of energy, but that's not acceptable. And I'm speaking from my heart space and I'm speaking from my child aspect. It's unacceptable to think that it is okay to expose your child into certain type of dangers and traumas and consider it as a form of training, or hey, this is an introduction of this is what it's going to be going forward. That's a fucked up programming that she got me into. Then couple that with not having a father that lives with us, and all that damage that causes automatically to a child, especially to a son. Because you know how it is when you're a boy and you look up to your father a certain type of way. You hold your father to a certain type of standard, and him not being there physically because of his alcoholism problems that he had when he was here on this earth. And I'm not by any means trying to play him out or disrespect him or put him out in the forefront of embarrassment. It is what it is. It was what it was. You allow liquor and letting your shadow take over and treat my mother poorly and talk to her recklessly and then think that it's acceptable for you to be around and accessible to us 24/7, 365. That's unrealistic. So my mother had to do what she had to do and separate from you. So having that dynamic, growing into that dynamic, after a while, especially during high school, have developed a nasty ass attitude, disposition, and mouth, especially as somebody, if I even hinted to you trying me or fucking with me, I was coming after you. And I would say and I would mention certain things to them that they knew they weren't proud of. That was my form of defense, but it became a situation where I felt like, hey, if somebody fucks with you because of everything that you experience, now that you're older, you're not going to just sit there and allow somebody to disrespect you. And you sit there and be okay with it with a smile on your face. So between the age of, I'll say 15, 16 through 35, I've been the type of person that would walk around with his chip on his shoulder to a degree. And if I even hinted, like I said, if I hinted that you're trying to be funny, I was gonna go Richie Pryor on your ass, and you wasn't gonna like it. But then I learned, and I started to see that where this is coming from. Because again, as I've mentioned to you in my last video, I would just be sometimes I'll be discussing with people that just did not deserve it, but especially if I was having a fucked up day or just wasn't feeling it. And I even sensed that you came at me disrespectfully, That was that. It was a wrap. So yeah, don't let the appearance fool you. I was that person that came for people, and that's the main reason why most people, even the ones that called themselves friends at the time, that's why, to a degree, they didn't like me either, because they knew I had the ability to pull out some shit that they didn't. They didn't want that to be pulled out because they seen it in real time for themselves. But I'll tell you, I'll say this though, especially when it pertains to that situation. I knew the reasons why they didn't fuck with me. It was not only because of that, it was also because of the light that I always carried and shined, even during my unhealed states. And it mirrored and it's interconnected to my childhood. Even though I went through certain specific traumas that I didn't deserve, I still carried a certain type of light around me, and other people didn't like it. Especially the ones that probably went through, most likely, highly over likely, the same situations I went through. But because of my resilient, my ability of tapping into that light, it fucked with them. And it's going to continue, to do so. I know, especially when it comes to people that are unhealed and actively want to stay there. My presence, me walking around, just me, and I don't even have to speak to you or give you eye contact. Just knowing that my energy is around, it fucks with you, and I'm okay with that. And again, I don't have to be confrontational with you at all. As a matter of fact, you would just let me know. Okay, all right. Well, I see what type of time you're on, but guess what? Stay over there. And I'm cool on that. And it's nothing personal. Just stay there. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm at a space now, it's like, okay, sure, stay there. But just because I'm healed in aspects and healing, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm just going to sit up there and let somebody, you know what I'm saying? And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be belligerent about it. Like I've said in other videos I've done, it's about your energy and how you speak to people. Because you could get your point across without yelling. I could get my point across by this tone, this energy, and it's received. How it's received at the person of the receiver. So it's all about knowing the happy medium. No, I'm not saying that, because you're healed, you could just let people say whatever they want. And in other cases, yeah. Sometimes you gotta let demons speak. You gotta let those Jerichos speak. You gotta let the NPCs speak, because that's what they're programmed to do. Just always run their fucking mouth. Always want to be the one to have the last word. The want to be the one that feel like, oh, okay, I won this verbal debate. You ain't win shit. Not to someone who doesn't give a fuck. Not to someone who is healing. They're not going to care that much to I'm going to get you before you get me. They're not even going to think about that. So I say this all to say, throughout the years of me feeling this way and feeling unprotected, I felt like I had to be that. And I had to learn to balance that by realizing when you heal and you start to realize who you are, and everything around you, and seeing both sides of the spectrum and being in both sides of the spectrum of the healing, you gain a better perspective, you gain a balance. You're more real about a lot of things about yourself and other people, and you're able to see it a lot faster and accept certain things a little bit more easier, because at the end of the day, you realize that most of the time, you think it's other people. It's you pulling in those experiences. So once you heal from that, you don't even have to worry about people trying you like that. And if they are, you're not gonna notice it. It's like, okay, it's like that fly that flies around your eye. Like, okay, all right, move, beat it, gone. And then after that, like, okay, you're not even gonna recognize each other's faces or anything. Complete strangers just saying, doing, or whatever, or throwing some kind of unnecessary energy at it. Like, okay, whatever. Just make sure you have your protections up. You don't have to worry about nothing, as long as you have to get your protections up and you're not even on that wave. Like, okay, well, you felt that way. Okay, well, I feel sorry for you, because I'm a bomb ass person to get to know. I'm a bomb ass person to have on your side. And this is not just being cocky. This is about knowing. This is about understanding who you are and valuing that and standing on it. But at the end of the day, not everybody is going to have the ability to see and feel because of their disconnection from their heart space. Just like the kids that fucked with me growing up, I hope that they found a space to where they could release and heal from that and become better people. And if not, that's fine too. That was the choice that they made. And even though my mother did the best that she could, I know her intent wasn't to make me feel that I wasn't safe or wasn't protected. I know that wasn't her intent. But as a child, that's how I felt. And even sometimes as an adult, that's how I feel. But I also have to accept the fact that at the end of the day, my mother is just not a confrontational person. She's just not that type of person. So she's not going to teach me the combats to that extent. So I had to adapt and survive in a way. But because I didn't know the balance, because I haven't healed from certain things, I just became ravenous, you know? And then I had to learn to pull back and have that balance because at the end of the day, it's not going to serve me or anyone else.